Hi everyone, it's Sandi Clarkson from My Creative Scrapbook, and today I want to share with you the 4 projects that I created using the May limited edition kit. I hope that I am in frame good enough. I'm having difficulty determining that with my video camera, but anyway, this is project number 1, and this kit of course features Prima's new Among the Wildflowers collection, which is just beautiful and created by the 3 Girls Tale. So anyway, this page here is a little bit of a repeat of something they've done before, but I think they've updated it a little bit. And I wanted to go kind of clean and simple on this one. I did try doing some mixed media on the second sheet of this, and it just was too busy for me, and so that's why I decided to just use the back of that page and go ahead and use this one in a more clean and simple fashion. So everything here is pretty plain except for white plates, paint splatters, and some pearls, but I have focused on the focal point over here. And I'm documenting a photo of my niece Karen, and I thought that was really sweet, and I haven't scrapped it before that I recall. So what I did to create some separation between the background paper and my focal cluster was I added in a white doily from my stash, and I've kind of leaned into those this month on a number of my projects. It just seems to kind of really work to have that white separation. So behind the photo, I've used a photo mat just with pattern paper, and also I fussy cut out this little book page from one of the other papers, and I've used it as an element underneath my photo. And then I've also used this little tag that was from the ephemera pack, and I think that's about it. I have some corrugated cardboard underneath my photo because I knew I was going to be adding these dimensional flowers. But in terms of other embellishments, along the left-hand side here, I've used 2 of the same birdhouse to kind of create like a little bird community, if you will. And one of them is adhered to the paper. The other one, I've used a foam square under it to elevate it. And so I like really the way it looks. And then down the next thing, I've used the little cart with the florals in it and the little duckling. And then I just did a little shading right here to give that something to rest on. And then on the opposite side, I've used, another birdhouse, and I played around with some different ones, but I like the colors of this one, and so that's why I finally opted to do that one, and it's also elevated on foam. This and these things here are, and this bumblebee are all from the chipboard set. This one just says Botany number 12. It looks like Wildflowers, and then Hello Spring, Bloom, and Be Sweet. And I'm using Hello Spring as my title. So I've clustered in 2 of the yellow florals, 1 pink one and 1 white one, and then added this secondary bumblebee from the ephemera pack. And I think that's everything except for my white splatters and my pearls. I did add a few pearls here and there. I even put them on the spines of my butterflies, which I used to do all the time, and I just kind of got away from that. But you might not see me do it again, but I did it this time just to give it a little pizzazz. So I think that's everything. There are close-ups on the My Creative Scrapbook website under the design team gallery. And then for number 2, I've decided to follow the sketch that we have this month. And if you recall, the sketch has 2 photos. And so just recalling what I had recently, I had these 2 photos from Easter of our adult Easter egg hunt. And Olivia found the golden egg, which I think had a $100 bill in it. And so there she is with the egg. It's wearing a wig and it had some glasses on, but it was kind of a cute photo, or, a couple of photos. So I've used those. In the sketch, there is a vertical piece that is striped, and we didn't have any stripes in the paper, but I decided just to use something with some florals in it. And then I didn't want just the straight edge because I'm using this wood grain paper. I thought I needed something to kind of separate it. So I pulled out one of my punches and I punched the edges on both sides, you know, all the way down. And then put some vintage photo for shading. But I thought that gave it just a little something, and it didn't look so squared off and sharp. So I did that, and then this paper here is another one from the pattern paper, and I've added my photo. I did elevate this whole panel on corrugated cardboard. So there is a doily in the sketch, and it shows it on top of this pattern paper, but since I was elevating everything, I took my doily underneath. This could be any circle element if you're going to follow the sketch, you know, exactly. And then down here, the sketch shows two banner type pieces. So I created a tag just from one of the pattern papers and added a couple of things from the embellishment kit. This one is adhered to the tag. This one I elevated on foam squares, and then I just used some jute twine right there. For a secondary flag or whatever, I used this little tag from the ephemera kit and tucked it underneath the doily. And then I've added in a little floral, some ducklings, and a bumblebee that were all from the ephemera pack. Also from that ephemera pack are these two florals right here, these two florals right here, and then these two bumblebees up here in the upper left-hand corner. And then, of course, I put in some dimensional flowers. I used this one big floral right here, and then added in the vine of rosebuds that has all the nice leaves on it. And then I used this big cluster of the pink flowers down here in this corner. And I've added some chipboard and the love egg, the bunny and the flower and the egg hunt, and then the Easter joy. But I'm calling this one the golden egg because that's really what it was all about. My final touch on this one was just splattering of white paint, and I think that is everything. I didn't add any pearls on this one. It's pretty busy with all the florals over here, although, you know, the brown over here does balance things out. Layout number 3, I won't go over in too much detail because I do have a process video on this one, and I'd like for you to watch the process video. But I did layer a couple of pieces of pattern paper and did tearing with the tearing tool and layered them, and I did do some stenciling underneath. And I should have done it a little higher and lower, but I had marked my spots. But I was okay with it because I didn't know how much I would curl up the edges and so forth. But I used super heavy gesso, so it would be really white. And that's one thing I have found as far as paste and textures like that, is that super heavy gesso is extremely white and you don't have to add any paint to it or anything. So I've got florals, chipboard, ephemera. I'm going to let you just watch the process video, and there's close-ups on my process video as well as on the My Creative Scrapbook website. And then layout number 4, I did on this watercolor paper that was, well, I say it's a watercolor design from the pattern papers, but it was more simple and I wanted to do something with it. And so I decided to add a panel here that I cut in half, but I took about a 3-inch panel from one of the pattern papers, had the birdhouse and then the little shovel, and then I cut it in half and I rounded off the edges that are in the center, not knowing exactly where all my elements would be, and I thought that would just kind of give it a finished touch. I also added some vintage photo to the edges of those 2 papers. And then before adhering them, I used some Rainforest dye ink from 49 Market and Ranger. And this matches really well with this that's already on the pattern paper. And I just made it a little darker by going heavier with my ink. And I just used a tool like this and just brushed it on before adhering the paper. And I think that just helps give some nice shadowing to those two pieces. So here's my focal cluster over here. And this is a couple of granddaughters on Easter in their dresses. And I've used pattern paper again to frame a photo and also as another layer underneath, as well as using a paper doily again. I just wanted something kind of round over here, so that's why I did that. And then these frames, there's 3 frames of it I cut from the cutout sheet that's among the papers. And then I added in this little tag that is from the ephemera pack. Also from the ephemera pack are these florals right here, this little flower basket, these florals and bunny rabbit, the bumblebees. All the bumblebees are from that. And also this little floral thing right here and the birdhouse. And then I fussy cut this big pink flower and this pink flower over here because I needed a little bit more from the pink family. I thought I also added a pink floral over there. And then in terms of the chipboard, I added the little birdie, the earth laps and flowers, and then family down here. And let's see what else. My floral cluster here and then the rosebud floral cluster here are from the dimensional flowers. And yeah, I fussy cut those, and then that is stabilized on some foam. And the reason I added this is because it had daisies here, and I thought that would make a nice continuation of really almost looking like it's part of the pattern paper. I probably would have added one more bumblebee right up here if I had had one that I didn't have to fussy cut. I did have some, extras that are on the pattern paper, but my thought was that when I cut them out, I would have some white showing, around the legs and the antennas and so forth. And since I wasn't mounting it on white cardstock, I thought that would bother me. So I just added that little birdie and the little flower. And then with my white paint splatters, that added a little character up there as well. Kind of as a finishing touch as I was splattering, I also used a foam dabber, which I often do. I just put that in the white paint and I just kind of hit the paper, in a few different places. You'll see that a lot from me. And, you just get what you get, like Tim Holt says. Sometimes it might be a little heavier than you planned, but other times it just adds a nice little shabby effect. So I think that is everything on this paper. I have elevated the photo with some corrugated cardboard, and I think it just makes a nice spring Eastery page. So if you have questions about any of these layouts, please leave that in the comments below. I love to hear what you have to say about the kit and my layouts. And then also, I like seeing what you create. So please post in our Facebook group if you will. Thanks for coming by today, and I hope this is helpful. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.